Hello everybody, welcome back to Forza Horizon 4 with another run through the mountain range to try and beat the ID.R. We have had a lot of DLC cars in the recent weeks and months, and it's time to put them head to head once and for all to find out which one is truly the best around a very twisty mountain course. Our slowest car of the day is quite saying something actually, because it's the brand new Corvette C8, the first mid-engine production Corvette anyway in history. And this is a fantastic car to drive. It's just lively enough to keep you on your toes while still being incredibly fast. Now, if this is the slowest car in 10th place, at least in qualifying, that will be saying something. It's a very good car. It has about 495 horsepower, 490 torque. This is the Z51 package that have better suspension, better brakes. It's not quite the ZR1 and the Z06. Those will come, I would imagine, in next year after that. But this one is still a fantastically quick car underneath the gantry already, heading the downhill corners now. Very nice and composed. I was always a bit of a sucker for the C7 fans myself, but this one, the look has grown on me quite a bit. I was initially a little skeptical of the look, but it has grown on me quite a bit, especially in this orange paint job. We only got a few more corners left to go here. We are on to the bridge now. One more to go, and we will be across the line. Our next car is another Chevrolet, actually. This is the Camaro IROC. Not the IROC-Z road car, the actual IROC competition cars. They're about 450 horsepower. They're very lightweight, very grippy. They're quite old though. And that's why this thing, at least in qualifying again, did not do so well. GM did not have a good day today. This one a little bit more justification, considering it is nearly 40 years old now, but it's no slouch as it goes up here again, just under 3,000 pounds, over 400 horsepower, racing tires and suspension. It's just a little bit too heavy for this field. It doesn't quite have the power to weight ratio for the rest of these cars, but it's still putting on a pretty good show going under the gantry. We're at the halfway point. It might fare a little better down here as the high speed corners get help that aero become more useful, kind of get those grippy tires more in their element. We shall see as we head through the high-speed switchback. Nicely done, nice, clean, and composed. A little bit on the brakes, chucks in with a lot of speed on the corner of the house. Heading across the bridge now, one more corner, taps the wall. Great exit as we go across the line. We move on to another 80s legend here, well, forgotten legend, shall we say. The Toyota 222 going very sideways. The Toyota 222D Group S car. This is a concept that never got to race before its series was cancelled. 750 horsepower, 750 kilograms. It is an absolute prototype rocket ship, and it's already up the hill. If you're wondering why it was so slow, it's because, well, it's a bit of an animal. The power weight ratio of 1 kilogram per horsepower is absolutely biblical. And especially in a car from the 80s, it's 80s suspension, 80s brakes, 80s gearboxes, 80s aerodynamics. It really does struggle through these corners. It's a bit of a rocket ship on this one. Not a lot of steering, but by God is it fast. And when you feed it through correctly like that, that was very good, just about getting it stopped on the downhill. That was very close. Once you do get it right, it is an absolute beast, but getting it right can be quite tricky, and getting used to it in qualifying meant it was a little bit slow. He's pushing it so hard under brakes, you just see it squirming around on the suspension. It's really not happy, but it's got one more corner to go and it will all be over. Big slide before the line. This is the 2Jet Z. It looks like a Hot Wheels car, and that's because it actually is one. This won the Hot Wheels Legends Tour. It is completely custom built. It uses a 700 horsepower Toyota 2JZ engine, as the name would suggest. it's a rocket ship, and it looks like one too. It's sort of insane, and you can see it's quite difficult to drive, judging on how twitchy it was there. But it's already on the uphill. It's a fast car if you can control it, similar to that Toyota. If you can get it right, it is very quick, but you gotta really be careful with that throttle. You can just see it weaving about, trying to get that power down in such a short wheelbase and such a light car is incredibly difficult, and also the vision from the cockpit might also be slightly inconvenienced with the incredibly vivid orange tinting. Ooh, not the oversteer that you want heading into that corner. Out on the downhill, very sketchy, and I can imagine his heart rate is quite high, but we're almost there. Little bit of counter steer into the corner, just trying to keep the thing in a straight line. One more corner to go across the bridge, carrying a decent amount of speed, neutral steering before we go across the line. We have another American road car here, the 2020 Shelby GT500. One of the most powerful road cars of the day, one of the most powerful cars of the day, period. 760 horsepower, while it's very heavy, it also has a lot of tech in it. This is 9-year-old GT500. This is grippy, it has lots of aero, fancy suspension, it is a proper track car. It just so happens to have a massive supercharged V8. And it is flying. It's the fastest American car of the day, in fact, and it is really good. You can see it's getting a little bit of understeer through these corners, just that weight dragging on line. It weighs 4,100 pounds, and you can really tell that in some of these corners, especially in the high-speed corners, but it still has quite a bit of carbon fiber, quite a bit of really grippy road legal racing tires, and of course, nearly 800 horsepower, kicking it out of the corners without too much wheel spin. I'm very impressed. I'm very impressed with the Shelby. We only have a few more corners to go. Will it understeer? No. Nicely done through that double apex. Another double apex. A little bit of understeer, running wide, hitting the fence, and he is across the line. We do have to go back in time a little bit to the 1990s with the Nissan R32 GTR Group A touring car. This is a 550 horsepower all-wheel drive monster that's going a little bit of a four-wheel drift around the flat corner, but he keeps it nice and tidy. This thing won every single race it entered in the Japanese Touring Car Championship, as well as a few titles in Australia where it earned the nickname Godzilla, which it still carries to this day. This is a very incredible and incredibly important car, and it is flying up this course. Cuts the corner a little bit, four-wheel drift again, almost running wide, keeps it nice and under control underneath the gantry now. This is where the high-speed corners really come in. It's a fast car, sure, but it's got 90s tires, and you can really see that in some of these high-speed corners. Just that little loss of grip midway around. We got a few more corners to go, not too long. Carries good speed, a little bit late on the brakes, runs slightly wide, not a great line, but it gives us a good exit. Can we carry the speed? Yes, we can. One more corner to go, and we are across the line. Speaking of 90s all-wheel drive touring cars, this is the Alfa Romeo 155 DTM. This is a massive touring car, ridiculous amounts of power, all-wheel drive, even more aero than the Nissan, and it is a rocket ship. It's got a V6 engine, making over 450 horsepower, with some pushing as high as 550, and it weighs less than 2,400 pounds with all-wheel drive. I think this one is running 460 odd horsepower in its current state of tune, but it does not seem that way. It is flying up this hill. We're already at the crest, very nice and tidy through there. That downforce working to great effect underneath the gantry. Now will come into his own with the fantastic racing slicks on it. That's just some incredible corner speed. You would think the all-wheel drive would cause some form of understeer, but in this, it is just perfect turn-in after perfect turn-in. And look at the speed carries in there. It's not quite flat out. It's a little bit of a lift, but it's pretty damn close. Just a one more corner, a little bit down on the brakes, nearly hits the fence, and we are across the line. We go from the 90s to very much the future. Hopefully not an underwhelming, overpromised future, but the future nonetheless, and it is a fast future. The Quadra VTech Turbo. This is an insane all-wheel drive future car that has some form of power plant. It might be an engine, it might also be a fusion reactor. I don't actually remember, but all that matters is it's flying up this hill. Jesus Christ, it is fast. And two, look at it. Just that's all I need to say. Look at it. It's insane and it's drifting. That's even more spectacular. Spectacular without the drifting, but now they're just dialing it up from 11 to 12, and he's four-wheel drifting everywhere. You just see all of those horsepowers escaping from all four wheels. It's a very powerful car, I'll tell you that. Question is, does it have the handling to make up for it? Ooh, clips the wall a little bit. You can see he's right on the raggedy edge of control. Carries good speed through there, over the bridge, one more to go, and then just career towards the line. Second in qualifying is the fastest naturally aspirated car of the day. Ferrari sent their big guns in the form of the FXX. This is basically an Enzo on steroids. Massive V12, incredible aerodynamics, not road legal at all. It doesn't even have mirrors, instead it has a fancy rear view camera, which you can sort of see on the dashboard there. This is a monster, almost 800 horsepower, and it is using all of them in glorious V12 noise. You gotta love a good old V12. Cuts the corner a little bit, carries good speed through there. Underneath the gantry now, we're gonna see some real speeds. Runs a little bit wide on the grass. That's not what you want. Somehow regains control and gets a brilliant triple apex corners through there. I saw him go on the grass and I thought it was game over. I thought we were going to have a multi-million-dollar accident, but we were able to sort it out. That's some incredible car control and some incredible car. As he goes over the bridge, one more to go, runs a little bit wide, and is across the line. And finally, the fastest car of the day, launching in fourth gear, is the Koenigsegg Jesko. I know it's pronounced Jesko in Sweden, but there's a J, so deal with it. 1600 E85 horsepower, and look at that speed. Jesus Christ. It's going, it's going, it's gone. That's 204 miles an hour. That is the fastest speed we have ever recorded on the service, beating the Agera RS 201. That is some incredible speed. In qualifying, it did a 1 minute 8.9. Let's see if it can go any faster. If it can go faster, it may very well fight for a podium here. And it is rocking up this hills. What it lacks in traction, it more than makes up for in pure raw speed. And if it can control the Fury, it might stand a chance, and he is doing a damn good job of controlling that Fury flat out through the chicane, running very close to the rocks. 7th gear, 8th gear through there. Just a little bit more to go. It's already towards the end, and then we just have to fly the line 1800 across. And the results are in. The Koenigsegg Jesko did an unbelievable 1 minute 7.5. It is less than 0.3 of a second slower than the Volkswagen. Think about that for a second. A road car that's rear-wheel drive with road tires and not a Pikes Peak body kit was just a few tenths of a second slower than the ID.R. That is some incredible speed gained simply by brute power. Brute power and the ability to control it. Because the Rimac was more powerful than this car, by about 200 horsepower in fact. However, it couldn't control the Fury. It didn't have the brakes and have the handling. This does have enough handling so that it can sort of almost match the ID.R around the corners, and then on the straightaways, it just decimates all the comers, even decimates its fellow Koenigsegg Jesko. That's an incredible showing, but not to be overshadowed. The Ferrari FXX in 7th, 1 minute 8.9, is no slouch. In fact, its time is just a thousandth of a second faster than the Jesko's practice time. Fun fact there. Very, very impressive from that. Also very impressive is the Quadra, the Turbo R, breaking the 1 minute 11 barrier, just scoring itself a rightful 11th place. Turns out that it had 1,400 horsepower, and if it had a little bit more control, I reckon it would be fighting for maybe even a top 5. But as it is, it just did not have the sheer suspension, the sheer brakes or control required to match what that Koenigsegg did. God, that Koenigsegg was fast. I mean, the Alfa Romeo DTM and the Nissan are very close together. 1 minute 14, 1 minute 17, so not too far off, about 2.5 seconds off, which really goes to show you how fast that Alfa is in the touring car wars, because they were same era, same drivetrain. The Nissan actually has more power, a little more weight for sure, but not a colossal amount. And yet, it was right there. Of course, we also have to acknowledge that smidged in between those two cars is the terrifying Toyota. Like I said, it did not have the best of qualifying. It's a little bit of a controlled nuclear explosion, is what I would describe that car as. But on the actual time run, it certainly made its mark and went almost 3 seconds faster than its practice time, securing a very well-deserved 25th place. Same thing with the 2Jet-Z, also sandwiched between them. Again, another similar story, a little bit of a death trap in qualifying, shaving off 1.5 seconds during its actual run. So, very, very good, and proof that if your car is fast but uncontrollable, all you have to do is drive it a little bit under the absolute limit and you can get a very fast run out of it. The next fastest of our road cars would be the Shelby, actually slightly improving, 0.7 of a second faster than its qualifying run, but considering everything else went so much faster than it, like the Toyota and the 2Jet-Z, they improved so much that it actually fell 2 places to 33rd place, despite being faster. Again, if it weighed 500 pounds less, I can reckon that would be a serious supercar contender, but it's just a little bit too heavy to really have the handling that it needs to compete in this field. And then we have the Chevys. The Camaro got pretty much the exact same time in qualifying as it did in its time run, 120.9. And it just didn't have the pace. It wasn't anything wrong with it. It didn't handle terribly. It didn't handle, it didn't understeer, it didn't oversteer. It wasn't horrifically slow. It just wasn't fast. And in fact, the same could be said for the Corvette. Both of them down in 42nd and 43rd place. Just not as fast as one would expect. Especially considering it's got nearly 500 mid-engine horsepower, but those road tires did not do it any favors. But there we go. Nothing can dethrone the ID.R, although this is the closest we have gotten in a long time since we started this, back in 2019. So, provided they add some real high-performance stuff, which they have been adding more and more performance race cars into the game, we might yet see an ID.R challenger. But in the meantime, that will be it for this episode of Forza Horizon 4. I'll be back with more.